Welcome to Global Citizen Life podcast. Today on the show, we have Ryan Mellon. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Well, I'm really hoping for a lot of information from you, but more it's your experience. And we have somewhat similar lifestyles where we do travel quite a bit and we're working, and a lot of people are wondering, how do you do it? They come up with their thought of a lot of obstacles, and that there are things that we need to iron out to make sure it works to do it. So that's kind of what we want to really dive into today. So maybe start out with telling the listeners a little bit about what you do.
My background is in real estate investing. I previously was working two jobs, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. Then I got into real estate investing and built up a portfolio of rental properties and got passive income to kind of free myself up so that I could work from anywhere. And then most recently, I also help people make that jump from their either working their 9 to 5 or running their business from anywhere in the world.
And I mean, I think about that and it's like, wow, that's so great. I can sit on a beach and drink martinis. I don't know why martinis, I don't even drink them, but and we see those pictures of on the beach with a laptop.
Sure.
And I found that, there is a lot of freedom, but I don't know if anybody's actually tried to sit on the beach with a laptop. Not a good idea. The
I
dust,
have,
the
yeah,
sand,
yeah.
visual.
Yeah, the lighting is terrible. It's very hard to see the screen. Working outdoors in general is a little challenging just for that. But yeah, it's not as great as the laptop on the beach, right? So a lot of times I'm working in co-working spaces or I'm working out of my Airbnb or hotel. And then after I'm done for the day, then it's the beach with no laptop. And then you can have as many margaritas or martinis as you want, and it doesn't affect your work. So that's real. That's a little bit more realistic version of it. Um, Other than, working out of cafes and stuff too, which is nice because you can see, you might find something scenic and you can sit there by the window and people watch and work a little bit. But yeah.
I enjoy that quite a bit. I coffee shops are good for me for once in a while. I prefer more the co-working places because just as human beings, it's
Hmm.
nice to have that interaction. And I just find I can work in a coffee shop, and I do get work done because it's not often that people will start to talk to you or interrupt because it's obvious that we're working. But what I like about the co-working space, the ones that I've been to, some of them is we'll work in the morning, we all have lunch together, or in others, just a few of us will have lunch and then work again in the afternoon. And what's really nice about that is sometimes it's getting a second opinion. We're
Hmm.
working on projects, and sometimes we have kind of those. I don't want to say our eyes covered, but you can't really see that peripheral vision type thing because we're so focused on it, and having that person to talk to and say, oh, I'm working on this, or what do you think of that, and just having that extra idea is so nice because sometimes working from home, it can get lonely, and it can be kind of that stuck that we don't have somebody to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good networking place, especially if you're an entrepreneur, working with other. You see a lot of entrepreneurs and freelancers in those areas. And then also what I like about the co-working space is just the fact that everyone else is also there to work, right? So it creates that environment. And then when you're done working, you can leave and now you're out of the work environment. Now you're in explore mode.
Right. Yeah, it is true because and we've all experienced it with when COVID happened, that kind of working from home. And sometimes that transition's hard. I've been working from home for probably about 2 decades now. Like
Okay.
before working, like nobody worked from home when I first started. And so I know what it was like to easily be, oh, I need to do the dishes, or oh, I can do some laundry. And
Hmm.
it's easy to get out of working. And then obviously, if we're not working, we're not making any money, especially if we're self-employed. And so going to that co-working space does, as you say, gets us into that work mode where everybody is working. And it kind of also helps kind of, I say, switch the brain, because a lot of times when we're at home, we're in relax mode. We're at
Mm-hmm.
home, we tidy up,
Mm-hmm.
we cook dinner or watch some movies, whatever it is, read a book. When we have a place to go to, and even if it's just like an office where we just work, if it's in an office at home, our brain automatically kind of switches more into that work mode to get things done.
Absolutely. It's definitely nice to just to switch over and have those clear boundaries, even if it's kind of subtle for your brain.
Mhm. And so if I'm wanting to quit my 9 to 5, I've had it, I want to travel and work online, what are some of the steps that you recommend for people to do first?
It just depends. So I guess if you're working a 9 to 5 that you're able to work from a computer already, I would say first let's try and keep your job if you enjoy it and see if it's possible that you can either ask your boss for permission to work from home or remotely. Or I have some people that don't even ask and they just go and they do it and they use a VPN and they've made it work. So, but if your job is not something that you can work digitally already, you need to build a skill that's going to allow you to. So, a lot of the entry level jobs for remote work, if you needed to make a career change, is customer service, virtual assistants, data entry, social media marketing, and content writing. Those are about the top five for entry level. So I always suggest to people like what are those, if any, appeal to them, and kind of chase those type of jobs down and start to build those skills, right? You can work a job, you can become an entrepreneur, or you can do freelance work. It all depends on what your skills are and are going to be enjoying to do every day.
Right, right. So for somebody who doesn't like social media, don't go into social media marketing. It's not, you're not
No,
going to
yeah,
enjoy it.
absolutely, absolutely not.
And I only picked that because I have a friend of mine she's in the process of kind of transitioning. So she's got her job,
Okay.
which she hated. She took some time off. She's okay with it right now. And she's trying a new job. So she's doing that balancing act of both right now. And even earlier today, she called me. She's like, am I going to always have to work nights and weekends and never have free time? Like, I want to do this so I can, have free time and do stuff. And I said to her, I said, it takes time. There's two ways to do it. If you
Yeah.
quit your job, then you're going to be more stressed because you have to be making so
Hmm.
much money, because you can live off your savings, but if you're not making money, that's going to be gone eventually.
Yeah.
Or, if you work more now, and it doesn't have to be every night, every weekend, 20-hour days, but if you do that, you're going to get your result faster.
Hmm.
But you want to enjoy it because you don't want to burn yourself out. So, and I said it depends on, what's more important, building up the company and getting things started, or having drinks with friends, or maybe, limit that. And I know she doesn't go out with friends every night. She doesn't have people over every night. And I said that to her. I said, it's not like you have people over all the time. You have people, and you go out once or twice a week, and or you have somebody over, keep it up once or twice a week. Just those other nights, then focus so many hours
Hmm.
on whatever tasks and things that you need to be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, they say like working 9 to 5 is for eat money, and working after 9 to 5 is for, building wealth and building the future so that eventually you don't have to be working so hard and you can enjoy those freedoms. So it's only temporary, right?
Mhm. That's right. And I said that, I'm like, you work it now, you build it up, and it doesn't even mean, depending upon, obviously, for people listening, what business they're doing. But with her, I said, you're building to then have an exit strategy. Like,
Hmm.
she's building a company. I said, you'll build it up, and initially you hire the first people you hire to do things you hate. and one immediately for her is social media. So the
Yeah.
first person that she'll hire is somebody to take over social media. So I said, as soon as you make enough money to pay that person should not only take over a job that you hate, but also through that social media bring you in more clients and
Hmm.
pay for themselves, hopefully fairly quickly. And then you use that for the next person. And then you build out your exit strategy as to roughly how long you want to be running this business and or a price point where you would be willing to sell, whichever comes first.
Yeah, I love that. It's good advice.
Yeah, well, because I think, it's great to work and depending, not everybody's going to have that type of exit strategy. If I'm just a freelancer, then I want to make sure I'm having lots of investments,
Hmm.
whether it's property, something that's going to pay me monthly dividends, or something that, um, like for me, I've got investments in wine and whiskey and fine art
Hmm.
and real estate and a variety of
Interesting.
different things because one thing tanks, at least
Sure.
I have some other things that are, going. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it so they're each hopefully kind of come up at different years. So each year I'll
Hmm.
have money coming in as each investment comes up. And that's kind of the goal for me because I don't, for what I'm doing right now, could I sell my company? Maybe if there's a potential, but for people who can't, if they're to freelance work, then to have those different types of exit strategies, and potentially, I mean, if you're a freelancer right now and then you hire people to do things and run it, it just depends on what you're doing and how you have it structured and what's kind of your end goal. I know some people just freelance work for now to build up those investments
Hmm.
to stop the freelance work.
Yeah, I mean, I think freelancing is one of those things that if you have the skill, it's a very quick thing that you can get on Fiverr or Upwork and start building that portfolio, getting those reviews, and kind of get your freedom like pretty quickly. One of my friends who I helped become a digital nomad, and that's when it really intrigued me to become a coach professionally. Was he was a social media manager? That's what he did for a company in person. We had met in when traveling in Mexico together, so he was working for a Mexican company in person at the office, doing their social media marketing, and he wanted to travel more. So I told him, I said, look, we can come up with a game plan, how much money you need, where you want to go, all that stuff. But in the meantime, while you're working this job, you need to be trying to take as many jobs and get a profile and reviews and a portfolio on Fiverr and Upwork. Start working for other companies out of country like the US and some other countries that are going to pay a little bit higher as well for the same type of work. And so it only took him maybe 6 months before he was making 5x what he was at his
Wow.
office job, and was able to quit. And he's been to 13 countries now in the past 2 years. So it can be very uh, quickly. It can move very quickly depending on your skills and how motivated you are, and your ability to just make it happen.
For sure. So, what do you find are some of the biggest challenges that people either incur or maybe they just don't think about when they're kind of planning either the lifestyle or just working for yourself?
I think mindset is the biggest thing. Like, first of all, you need to know that you can do it. And it's not, depending on where you're traveling, oftentimes, if you're working in a country that has a high cost of living and high pay, and you're traveling in countries that have lower cost of living, your money's going to go way farther on the road than it is at home. So just having that understanding that this lifestyle can actually be cheaper than your at home lifestyle is a huge one. um, and then a lot of people just get caught up on what do I do with my house and my car? And if I have
Yeah,
kids, obviously that's going to be much more challenging. You need to figure out homeschooling or online schooling, stuff like that. But there's lots of families out there doing it. They're traveling countries in RVs and sailing the world and sailboats. So, I would say mindset and is one of the biggest things, just kind of figuring out the budget. But then the third thing is that if you're gonna work for yourself and you've never done that before, you've always worked for an employer, let's say you're gonna transition into freelancing or being an entrepreneur, it's just you really need to have the self-discipline to be able to set aside that time, especially when you're in a beautiful place that you want to just hang out and explore and do all the fun stuff. To say, hey, 9 to 5 or whatever, Monday through Friday, this is work time, and then the rest of the time is playtime. So just developing that much needed um, self-discipline, I think, is a big hurdle for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I think so too, especially when arriving in a new destination, and especially at the very beginning.
Sure.
Because it's like, oh, I'm somewhere new and I want to check it out and go see all these places. But I say to people sometimes too to kind of set up a bit of an award system.
Yeah.
So if you do your Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, or you could do maybe a little bit less if you seriously focus on work,
Mhm.
because when we really focus
Mhm.
and get things done and not get distracted by, you know, something on Instagram or YouTube. And it happens to me sometimes. I'll be like, oh, I need to do something to post something on YouTube or post something on Instagram. And then you post and then you start scrolling a little bit and a little bit. And then all of a sudden, 20 minutes, an hour might go by. But if we're really focused, and we can get a lot of work done within that 9 to 5, 9 to 3
Mhm.
type schedule, or earlier if you're an early riser. And then to be okay, once I get either these tasks done or this amount of time, then I can go to whatever. Or I like to go jogging and exercise. So what I do if I'm in a new place is then I'll be like, oh, well, I'm going to go jogging, but I'm going to go through a new area. And then that way I can kind of see,
Mm.
do I want to go back?
Yeah.
Or there's some shops or coffee shops that I might want to go back to on a Saturday or something like that. So I'm kind of doing two things at the same time. I'm checking out a new neighborhood, but I'm getting some exercise in. And that's another way to kind of reward ourselves as well.
That's a good idea. And also, I tell people, if you have the ability to set aside just a couple days off when you get into that new place so that you can just explore right away and kind of get some stuff out of your system. And
Mhm.
like you said, highlight some of the places for later, for the weekends and for the evenings. So, and you're absolutely right. You can, oftentimes I can get away with a 30-hour work week or less if I'm just focused and, you know, don't get so sidetracked on things. It's surprising how much we think we give ourselves this time block, so we need to fill that time block. But once you start working for yourself and you just start working on what's really important and you delegate to people, like you were saying, you really can do more in less time.
For sure. And I think one thing that people also really need to consider, depending upon the type of work that they're doing, is time zones.
Mm.
Because we think it's nice to travel and go to these different places, and it is, but then you have to think, where's your client based? Is it
Mm-hmm.
okay if you message them and you have to wait 12 hours to get a response, or vice versa? If you're in Thailand and your clients are in North America, that's a huge time difference. Or are you okay for the first little while, or a certain amount of time of while you're building, to be okay, I'm going to work from 5 p.m. till midnight or one
Mm-hmm.
o'clock in the morning or whatever those hours may be. And I know some people I've talked to, they're like, yeah, no problem, I can do it. And you can for a while, but eventually it's usually we don't have this life, so we're working night shift kind of thing.
Right. Right.
It's we don't want that. But if it's temporary, but we have to know the business that you're doing, where are your clientele and what time zones are they in?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's when anytime I'm talking with a client and they're trying to figure out where they're going to be, it's super important to know, like, do you need to be on in-person meetings like this, all day throughout the day? Or is there certain time zone like blocks? Can you just set aside the afternoon or the morning in where your clients are? Are you able to communicate through other ways? For me as a coach, I only coach people in the evenings here in on the Western time zones, which means that when I'm in Bali, it's 13 hours ahead. That means I need to be up at 5, 6 a.m. and I'm working, a solid those first 4 hours of the day, which is the evening here. And it's just gotta be my clients need to be able to fit that into their schedule in order for me to coach them one-on-one. And it's not been a problem. But you just need to know what your clients are willing to accept. And I've also found that just letting people know that you don't, you work from a different time zone. So, hey, just being honest with them about the expectations up front when it comes to communication is huge, and they're usually pretty good about that. And one of the benefits is oftentimes you might be getting some work done while they're sleeping. So they get up first thing in the morning and in their inbox is a whole day's worth of work. So that's a very positive thing for them. So,
Yeah, I agree. It definitely is looking at both schedules and fixing your routines. So when I'm in Montenegro, I have things set up where my mornings are free. So I get up generally around 6 o'clock in the morning, and I can get up and I can read for a bit and have coffee and go to the gym or exercise, eat, and I usually don't start work till around 11-ish. Usually no calls till about noon. But
yeah,
then
that's great.
that's because in North America, then it's early morning.
Right.
Right. So that's the way that I've set it up. And I'm thinking next year of going to Asia. So I'm going to have to adjust that. But then knowing when I come back to visit when I'm in North America, then it's like, oh, I got to like get out of bed and like get ready and be on it. I can't have that
Yeah.
slow, relaxing morning, do my
Yeah.
me stuff. I need to make sure that I'm working and then to still have that energy and time to go jogging or go to the gym or whatever after the day. So it's adjusting, and even for me who I'm used to doing it isn't always easy to adjust initially, and then I get into it. But I do have a preference of having my mornings slow and relaxing
Yeah.
and then getting into work throughout the
Yeah.
afternoon and into the evening. Um, but it is nice to switch it up.
Yeah, I agree. Like right now, I'm in the States. I'm in my home state of Virginia, so I can do that slow morning routine and start at 11 and work till the evening, and I love it. Um, uh, but yeah, it's kind of like one of those things that you got to turn on and turn off if you want to change the scenery, especially big time like Southeast Asia.
Yeah. But I mean, the nice thing too, or at least I'm trying to tell myself that is when I do get to Asia, even if I am up, I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning before. So it's just some adjusting, but getting up super early, you still kind of enjoy that morning before it gets too hot. But then by
Mm-hmm.
midday, early
Mm-hmm.
afternoon type thing, you're done for the day if you choose to be, and then can enjoy the rest of the day in the evening
Yeah.
when it's still nice to be out and doing things.
Yeah, there's still daylight and yeah, lots more time to explore, I think.
So what would be some things to really, what's the word, to really, I guess, truly think about if they want to be a digital nomad? Like, what are some of those real pivots that people kind of jump into and then realize, oh, I didn't really see that, other than the few that we talked about, like the time zone and things.
Yeah, well, I would say that just other than time zone and being able to work on your own schedule, if you're going to a place that has different languages, that's always one that might be a hang up for some people. Um, you always have to think about the weather in wherever you're going.
Mm,
There's been many times I've shown up in the rainy season of a certain location, and
mm-hmm,
you think,
hmm.
and it's a tropical destination, but it rains every day, and you just, all
And
right,
a lot of rain.
and a lot of rain. And then now you're stuck inside, like you wish you could see this beautiful place, but like it's raining all the time. So you got to think about those type of things,
And I
weather
guess
and
too, that would also then come into how is the internet if it's rainy season? Is it still good, or are there internet issues? Because even I lived in Costa Rica for a while, and sometimes for no reason really, the power would just randomly go out.
hmm I would agree with that 100%. I mean, internet is one of the probably the top complaint I have about being a digital nomad altogether. Um, it's challenging, especially when you're in countries that may not have the infrastructure as good as wherever you're from. Um, so it's definitely a challenge. I personally carry a 5G global hotspot. So,
Okay.
and when I'm booking Airbnbs or I'm booking a hotel on through booking.com, which is my preferred places to find hotels, um, Airbnb allows the host to upload their Wi-Fi speed now, like actually test it. So you can see down like
Okay.
megabytes per second before you book, which is great. Booking.com allows the guest to rate the Wi-Fi on a 1 to 10 scale. So when I'm looking at
Oh,
hotels on Booking, I'm always at nothing less than 8 I'm staying at on Wi-Fi. That's huge. And you'll see a lot of bad reviews on that. And I'll also search Wi-Fi as well. But then I always have that backup at the global hotspot. And the global hotspot, I can buy internet on the fly. It's a little bit more expensive, or I can buy a local SIM and put that in. And generally speaking, you need to know um, how much internet you're gonna need to do your job, right? If you're just surfing the internet and doing mainly emails and you're not having a lot of video calls, you really don't need that much, not as much speed as we often have at home. We have it very easy. So just knowing what your speeds are and what you need is also a good way to just make sure that you have what you need while you're there. So, um, I always have that global hotspot as a backup, but checking before you book a place to know what the internet's going to be like is huge.
oh, absolutely. Because that's, I mean, if it's one thing, as you said, if we're just doing emails, if it's a little bit slow, it's okay. We can still get the work done. But if we're having video calls and things like that, if it's delaying, then it's frustrating on both ends and
Sure.
nobody's happy after.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and it happens. There's sometimes there's just absolutely no getting around it. You can do everything you can in your power to change that and make it better, but it just happens, and it's just like part of the challenges with being a digital nomad for sure. Um, but I think in all, it's still worth it, you know.
Absolutely. So we've talked about a lot of those challenges because I do, I want people to get a realistic idea of what it's like. And a lot of things, part of the problem with social media is it just shows everything good and
Oh,
everything
yeah.
wonderful and
hmm
stuff. So whether it's people moving abroad, people investing in certain things, whatever they're doing, I always want to be like, there's always two sides, and we have to kind of weigh those options. And each component, the weight of it is different for each person. So we've talked a lot about those challenges. For you, what have you found has been some of the benefits for you to be a digital nomad and working while you travel?
Well, it's funny because I had friends fly in from Germany last week. to my home country and I showed them around for a week and I took a week off. And it was the first time that I realized that I hadn't taken a week off of work in like years. But I've been to 22 countries and 23 states in the past 5 years. And so just the fact that I didn't even realize I haven't had like a week off in years until last week kind of blew my mind because I enjoy my work and I'm always somewhere cool. Even when I'm home, I'm living on my sailboat. It's only the summertime. I love it there. And it doesn't feel like I'm working as much as I am. Like I'm not taking actual vacations. So just having the ability to change up your views and get into different cultures and different languages and eat different foods and smell the different smells of all the different countries and to walk down the street with fresh eyes like you're a kid again because you can't read anything, you don't know where you are. All that stuff is just really it just keeps things fresh and exciting. And then as soon as you get bored with a place, it's you can pack up and hop on a plane to the next place and just go do it all over again. The world's so huge. And you're also going to fall in love with some places and want to go back to some places. So just the freedom of it all, the ability to change everything up. Um, is what does it for me. I just really enjoy that.
The common question that I get asked with my travel and everything is, do you ever get lonely?
Yeah. So absolutely, that can be a thing too. So there's always a couple things that you can do. I've stayed in many, many hostels in my day.
Mhm.
And I know some people, their skin crawls when you say that word, but I've been to many, many cool places and stayed in well over 100 hostels. And I'll still stay in hostels sometimes. I'll get a private room. It's a good place to meet a lot of other solo travelers. Also, I found that the couch surfing app. So couch surfing is an app where you can just like sleep on people's couches or whatever. I've never actually done that, but you can use the app to find other travelers in an area to hang out with. So that's a cool function. Um, Co-working spaces are another
Mhm.
place where you're gonna just meet people. They're also traveling solo. They're working as well. So as soon as everyone's done working, you're off for drinks or exploring together. Going on group tours in any destination, you're gonna find someone on that tour that is also alone, and so and I've also dated a while abroad too. So there's a million, with just your regular apps that you would have at home. And so you're only really alone when you make that choice to be alone. Like I'm an introvert and I do enjoy my alone time. So sometimes I'm just like hold up, like work, 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 leave me alone, don't want to talk to anyone. But then when I want to turn that on and like go socialize, there's a lot of places that you can go that just where you're just gonna find other solo travelers and it clicks pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree, and I also say to people too, if they've lived in their home city or they've been there for many many years, when they ask me that, I ask the same question back. Do you ever get lonely? Because I know people who in their same, they have all their friends, their family, everybody
Absolutely.
around them, and they still feel the same way. So in a way, I mean, anybody can have that feeling no matter where they are.
Yeah.
And it is a bit more of a choice, I think, when we are traveling, because there is so much to do and so many new things to do.
Hmm.
But we can always find people to do things with. So it's kind of a question when I'm asked, I answer fairly similar to what you said as well, because there's always things
Yeah.
to do and people and meetups and everything. But then I always ask back the same thing. Well, do you get lonely living at home?
That's a very good insight. And I actually think it's easier to find people to hang out with on the road than it is at home because a lot of times your friends at home everyone's like in their routine, and they're going
Mhm.
to work and they don't really hang out during the week, and we don't go to museums or to the park or to this cool tourist attraction that's right in our backyard after work, because it's just not what we do, right? So it's
Right.
actually easier to not be alone in a foreign country than it is at home sometimes, so
Yeah.
it's really not it's not bad at all.
It's true because how often is somebody a tourist in their own city?
Yeah. Yeah, not
Very, very rare,
very few.
unless, you have people that are coming in to visit
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
showing them around, but even then,
Yeah.
did you do some things that you've never done before or haven't done in years?
Yes, yes. And that was great. And they had a great time. And I enjoyed it too. I was like, man, I haven't been here since I was a kid.
Mhm,
And saw some new things, and I was impressed with some of our local things that we had done recently, and just like I didn't really even know that existed. So
mhm.
yeah.
That's great, and I often say to people too when they're first starting, even if it's just to travel abroad and to travel abroad alone. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are like, "Oh, but to do it myself." I always say, start to be a tourist in your own city, or go to a state or province, depending upon where you live, nearby. But go by yourself. Go for one night. Go for dinner by yourself somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Go one night to another town by yourself, or do a day trip if you can, like, whatever it may be, to just do little things.
Mm-hmm.
So then, you're still know the environment fairly well, but you get used to doing those little things by yourself. So then when you do go to another country, especially that it's another country, different language, everything's completely new. It can be a little bit overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
at first. So if you start to get used to going to dinner by yourself on occasion, you're like, it's kinda
It's
nice to
no
go to
big
dinner by
deal.
myself. I
Yeah.
usually sit at the bar and
Yeah.
talk to the bartender, whoever's
Mhm.
sitting around. Generally, people are always, especially if they're at the bar, they're always up for conversation with
Yeah.
who is ever's at the bar. And if you wanna be left alone to read a book while you're eating, you can sit at a table and be
Yeah.
left alone.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good idea. And because yeah, most people sitting at the bar usually oftentimes alone, or it's just a couple, and generally it's a more sociable crowd. So yeah, that's a good idea. I like that, starting slow. My first experience with solo travel was just literally I got 2 weeks off from both my jobs, and I booked a flight to Costa Rica. And I was in San Jose one day just all by myself, and I booked my very first hostel. And I had no plans for the whole country at all, because I had read about just keeping things loose and open. So I flew in, and
Mhm.
I was staying in the hostel. And because it was near the airport, a lot of people in that hostel had just seen the whole country and were about to leave. So
Ah.
I'm like, give me your top five. What was the most amazing things that you've done these past couple weeks? And there was a lot of common things that came up. And then that's how I started planning my next moves. And I went to both coasts. Um, I went to the mountains and the jungle and climbed volcanoes and swam in the Crater
Nice.
Lake and zip lined and hung out at the beaches. And 2 weeks had flown by. I met tons of people that were traveling for years, like months and years on end, which I didn't even know existed at that time, which blew my mind. And that was the real big game changer for me, to really start like making some lifestyle changes, and changes with my job, so that I could be more free to make and start integrating travel into my life.
Yeah, and, when I first moved from Canada, I moved to Costa Rica, and at first I thought I was a strange person, like, wanting to leave my home city, my home country, not because I had to move for work or, with a partner that was going or anything. And when I got to Costa Rica and I met so many people, and I thought, wow, there's so many people like me who do
Yeah.
want to leave. And I mean, this was well over a decade ago. So,
Yeah.
there was still a lot, but I think a lot more since the pandemic when people realized they can work from home and do things that it's definitely jumped a lot, but I just thought, wow, there are so many people like me who just want to travel, who want to see the world. And I was living there though, so more mine was like I planned to stay there, and I ended up staying for about 4 or 5 years,
Okay.
and then moved on. But there's so many different ways of living abroad, traveling abroad, whether it's a few months or staying a year, and all of those things obviously depend upon what visas and things for residency status that people can get, but there's definitely lots of options for that. So,
Yeah.
Ryan, I want to thank you very much for your time today. And if people wanted to get in touch with
Hmm.
you, to ask you a few questions, maybe work with you, figure out a plan for them to become a digital nomad, where
Yeah.
would be the best place for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my website is www.thedigitalnomadcoach.com. And I'm also the Digital Nomad Coach on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
And we'll be sure to have those links in the show notes to make it easy for everybody to connect with you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me as well. Very good conversation and look forward to staying in touch.